I'm happy to see all of you that are interested in your academics to do well, not just academically, but also spiritually. Not just spiritually, but also health-wise. Okay, and my topic is hope for nutrition in brokenness. Hope for nutrition in brokenness. And the subtitle, or rather what I'm going to touch on most, is dealing with overnutrition and undernutrition. And we only have got an hour, so we want to try and maximize what we can get out of that. So allow me to get into cruise control mode and then give you a little bit of minutes at the end so that you can ask questions and have a mini interaction. My name is Dr. Hleza, as indicated. I'm a naturopathic doctor. I am also a lifestyle medicine board certified specialist and nutritionist. But above all, I am a child of God. Amen. I thought you were going to say amen to that. Amen. And I am a medical missionary. What we're going to cover is overnutrition, undernutrition, risk factors, hope. But in all this, we'll also be looking at why we need to study nutrition. One of the best case studies that I think by now, if you have been a Christian when it comes to nutrition, it's Daniel and his friends. Okay. It's Daniel and his friends. We're going to just draw a few pointers here as far as overnutrition and undernutrition is concerned. And then we'll get into defining what is overnutrition, what is undernutrition. But these verses are going just to lay the foundation for the discussion. We are reading from the book of Daniel chapter 1, verse 10, 12 to 17. Verse 10, 12 to 17. And we find Daniel and his friends in captivity. We find them in captivity in Babylon. They had left their home country as a result of disobedience, as a result of outright defiance of God's principles to life. So they were led into captivity. The Lord allowed that they be in captivity. Okay. And in that environment, we read verse 10. These boys were chosen to go to university to study the principles of life as far as Babylon is concerned, so that they can be part of the leadership, they can be part of the administrative council that advises King Nebuchadnezzar, because they were sought for men that are up to be able to learn and apply principles as far as what they would have learned is concerned in governance. And Daniel and his friends were chosen. Verse 10, when they were chosen, like any other university, there's a cafeteria. Okay, so here also there was a what? A cafeteria. And there's someone in charge of the health of the students. And in this case, we are reading now verse 10. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, this is after Daniel had requested that they eat a certain kind of group of foods than what was served on the king's table, or than what was served by the cafeteria team under the instruction of the king, that this is the best diet for students. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who hath appointed your meat or your food and your drink. For why should he see your faces worse likened than the children which are of your sort? Then shall ye make me endanger my head to the king. So Daniel, I understand with your friends, there's a certain lifestyle you used to live when you were in Israel. but now you are under rulership. You are now slaves. And in this case, we have got a diet you are supposed to follow. But you are requesting for something that can endanger my life. Why should you look malnourished? What will the king say? Then verse 12. Daniel responded, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. So Daniel had a mind. And he says, please give us 10 days. Allow us to eat the kind of food we were eating in Israel. Mainly a plant-based diet, different types of legumes, etc., plus water. And then check with us 10 days later what's going to happen. Then let our countenances be looked upon before thee, and the countenances of the children that eat of the portion of the king's food or meat. And as thou seest, deal with thy servants. All right. It looks like Daniel had confidence as far as understanding of the principles of diet is concerned for Israel. And then he says, you compare with us with the other students. So give us this. The other students, they eat the food that had been set by the Nutrition Council for the universities in Babylon. So he consented to them in this matter and proved them 10 days. And I think day one, he went to sleep, and he might have a dream, and he's seeing these young men looking skinny and looking weakling, not being able to process thoughts with confusion because of lack of adequate nutrients the body needs as far as that is concerned. At the end of the 10 days, their countenances appeared fairer, fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat at the portion of the king's meat. Amen. All right. So sometimes we want to focus on the mental capacity that they were 10 times wiser as far as wisdom and knowledge is concerned. But the Bible also says they appeared fairer and fatter. Thus Hleza took away the portion of their meat and the wine that they should drink, and gave them pulse. As for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams, which started. When did God give them wisdom and understanding? After they heed to the principles of life God had given them. After also the brain and the nervous system had been fed the nutrients that are key for its function. So when we read from the book of 1 Corinthians 10 verse 31, it says, whether therefore ye eat or drink, do all to the glory of God. When you are at campus and you've got that 50 cents and you're going for $1 for 2, whatever you're going to grab, to the honor and the glory of the name of God, which is going to be seen in your life, isn't it? Yes. When you've got an extra $1 to spend than $1 for 2, and you're approaching that place where they sell food, if there would be a signage on top of your head, it should be saying, all to the glory of God. Is that making sense to you? Okay. The book of Counsels on Diet, page 29, paragraph 1 says, you want to ponder on this thought. Our danger is not from scarcity. Our danger is not from want or lack of, but from abundance. I know the cup that is full, almost about to spill, it's difficult to handle, to avoid it spilling, but there's not great danger there. it says our danger is not, there's great danger there than when one lacks. We are constantly tempted to excess. We are constantly what? Tempted to excess. I don't know if you are living in Zimbabwe, especially in Harare, where I stay in New Marlborough, along Loma Gundi. I've been checking. It seems like coming from Second Street Extension, corner Churchill, all the way to almost the roundabout at Westgate, I think they've introduced, if not 5 fast food outlets within the last year. And it looks like in major roads leading out of the city, that's the norm. And we are constantly tempted to excess. Those who would preserve their powers unimpaired for the service of God. Powers unimpaired for the service of God. Power that is not dwindling to go for mission must observe strict temperance in the use of his bounties, as well as total abstinence from every injurious or debasing indulgence. How many of you go for marathon? Even 1 kilometer, it's okay. You can raise your hand. Okay, how many of you go for walks, go for exercise? I have seen a lot of people that do that. And that's highly recommendable. But many times, afterwards, sometimes I see people rewarding themselves with a soft drink that is cool, with a bar of chocolate. I see people rewarding themselves by just going into this fast food outlet, and their indulgence does the opposite of what they could have gained. And many times people wonder, he used to be healthy, he used to go for marathons, but he died from a heart attack. Is it worth a while? The rising generation, especially us, are surrounded with allurements calculated to tempt the appetite. So what surrounds us in our environment, it's not just guesswork, okay? You may get to the counter to buy what you want to buy and close your eyes and say, my very earnest mother taught me to choose this one, but I want to choose this one. When you point, whatever you've pointed at, from your point of view, should you have done that, it seems like you haven't calculated anything. But the ones preparing the products and the environment in which you are in buying, they've calculated every single aspect to tempt the appetite. Especially in our large cities, especially in Harare. How many of you are coming from Harare? Let's see. Especially from Harare. Every form of indulgence is made easy and inviting. You can indulge for $1. And it's packaged in an inviting way. Yeah? And Satan makes sure that should you want to also probably, dip yourself in these health foods, etc., sometimes they are not easy to come by. I have gone to different conferences, several hotels. I've gone sometimes to eating outlets. And the moment you start talking about vegetarian or vegan, it seems like they're clueless. And when you go on the tables where they serve food, you can see that there are 5+ other options on the other side. And on this side, maybe there's only one option which you have to ask for, and maybe it's somewhere behind. Those who, like Daniel, refuse to defile themselves will reap the reward of their temperate habits. With their greater physical stamina and increased power of endurance. Physical stamina and power of endurance. Okay. They have a bank of deposit upon which to draw in case of emergency. I don't know what else we could ask from God than this. Greater physical stamina, power of endurance, and a bank in case of emergency. I wish I could dwell on this more, but so when you're looking at overnutrition and undernutrition, we want to look at metabolism and imbalance. Metabolism refers to the total biochem reactions that occur within an organism to maintain life, which involves two main processes: catabolism, which breaks down substances for energy. You have eaten an apple, it needs to be broken down to get the fructose and the vitamins. That's catabolism. And anabolism, which builds up substances for cellular function. So your cell needs to produce energy from the mitochondria, and then we also need to have vitamin C, zinc, and other nutrients for your immune system so that your white blood cells function the way they should. That is anabolism. Primary functions of metabolism include converting food into energy, creating building blocks for proteins and other molecules, as I have just explained to you. So the one way you want to think of this is photosynthesis. Who remembers the equation for photosynthesis? Anyone from the audience? Anyone? Okay. Carbon dioxide plus water plus sunlight. Then what comes out? Carbohydrates. Okay. So most of our food, if not all of our food, is rooted in this particular equation. Are we there? Whether you're going to choose to be a carnivore or an omnivore or whatever diet you're going to choose yourself to be categorized under, it boils down to this. Is it making sense? Because for the lion to enjoy the meal of the gazelle enjoyed grass, twigs, leaves, and that is where the root of photosynthesis is. For it to get it what? Its meal. The same with me. If I choose to go for a double beef burger, it still boils down to this particular equation. So that's where our nutrients or our nutritional value is rooted. And then we also have got digestive enzymes, which then help to break down these nutrients that are now complex as they are eaten to their simplest form as they are found before the equation of photosynthesis, as far as what's in the soil that is drawn up by the roots, and then the process goes on. Isn't it very interesting? That whether we like it or not, we are still going to go back to the basics where the plant is rooted. So then, what this means is that the health of the soil will determine to a greater extent the quality of the nutrients that we are getting. The same as the exposure to sunlight. Of course, there are some plants that can synthesize without sunlight. And then we now get the energy for movement, as well as for cell wall integrity, for muscles, for cell nerve impulses, etc. And then we've got what is called base metabolic rate, which is the conversion of the food you have eaten into energy. This can be determined by age, height, growth, and body composition, so this will differ according to your age. I had put the slide so that it's easier for you to go through it, but let's just proceed. So let's look at imbalance. And imbalance is where intake Intake is more than output. It can lead to overweight, obesity, and increase the risk for cancer in sites such as the colon, the rectum, prostate, etc. For example, the human immune system is directly affected by what one eats. For example, excess or deficiencies can lead to adverse function as far as the immune system is concerned. For example, a high protein diet depresses the white blood cells, especially T lymphocytes, and then a low protein diet can lead to kwashiorkor, which depresses the immune system as well. So either overnutrition or undernutrition still can depress the immune system. Is that making sense? When nutrition is over as far as proteins are concerned, what's going to happen? The T lymphocytes are going to be depressed. So immune system is affected. Now, when now we have got low protein as far as the diet is concerned, because the proteins are also used as far as building up the blood and then the white blood cells as well, so then the immune system is also what? Depressed in the case of kwashiorkor. Then obesity depresses the immune system, as does starvation. So what does this mean? There needs to be an equilibrium balance. Neither too much, nor too little. Are we still together? Okay. A high serum cholesterol depresses the immune system as well, as does excess doses of vitamin C or E. So either way, everything has to be in balance. So when we are looking at overweight, there's what is called BMI, body mass index, which if it's above 25 to about 29.9, that's overweight. When it's 30 plus, then that's obese. It's got different levels. So usually, when we talk about overnutrition, we can boil it down to metabolic syndromes. So the subject is so broad, but we can boil it down to that. But usually, most people talk about it from an obesity point of view, which then can bring risk factors for diabetes, hypertension, stroke, heart disease, cancer, etc. And all this as a result of overnutrition or excess, abundance, or intemperance. So we now have what are called modifiable risk factors and non-modifiable risk factors. Risk factors is what contributes to the perpetuity or the starting of that particular condition. In this case, we are looking at maybe obesity or any of those metabolic disorders that I've mentioned. The non-modifiable, there's not much we can do about it. For example, your age, your gender, your family history, those can contribute to a certain extent. But of course, family history, we can put it in between because there's something one can do about it. Is that making sense to you? So Dr. Brooke Gardner says that genetics or family history is like a menu card in a restaurant. How many of you have been in a restaurant? And there's a menu card, and then you start checking what you want. Okay. Then she goes on to say, lifestyle places the order. Okay. So you approach a restaurant called metabolic disorders. When you get there, on the menu, there is obesity, there is hypertension. Is that making sense to you? There's diabetes because of your family history, because of your genetics, isn't it? Because of your predisposition. Is that making sense to you? Now, that is what's on the menu, but you haven't placed an order yet. So the waiter won't deliver the meal. So then, what then places the order? Lifestyle. Okay, so at Stanford University, they did a research on identical twins, not fraternal. They look alike, and they had predisposition to certain metabolic disorders. They followed them for over 4 weeks, and they realized, they actually went to 8 weeks, then they realized that for each and every one of them, the ones who lived an ill lifestyle, their metabolic disorders went from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3 like that. But the ones who followed a healthy lifestyle, the tables turned. They get into remission, and there was reversal over a period of time. The modifiable risk factors: an unhealthy diet, lack of physical activity, tobacco use, abnormal cholesterol, raised blood glucose, or diabetes. So recently at my workplace, the Lancet team visited us. We have not been sending our clients to Lancet for their blood tests. And when they came through, the indication was some of your clients have been coming for their lab works when you order blood tests. And we've got an application where this is monitored. So we have realized that for those that have come for the past 6 months plus, there's a certain drop as far as their cholesterol is concerned. There's a certain improvement as far as their UNT, or rather their kidney function, is concerned, which we have not seen in other patients, and would like to offer you a special service. Is that making sense to you? Yes, and one particular case was a lady that came, which I think must be one of them because she used to go to Lancet. Her kidney function when she came was around 30, against a minimum of 70, a maximum of 170. 30, 70, 170. That was last year, about October. When she came a month ago, her kidney function was on 65. What did she do? Lifestyle modifications. From the level where she was last year, had she not done anything, by now she could be a candidate for dialysis. Is that making sense? All right. Let's look at the Bible. We want to look at just a few verses that talk about overnutrition. Okay. Judges chapter 3, verse 17. There's Ehud and King Eglon. Please give me a signal when I'm left with 10 minutes. I'm really trying my best here to dish out as much as I can. And he brought the present. So Ehud went to King Eglon, Judges chapter 3, verse 17, and Ehud brought the present unto King Eglon of Moab to say, I want to give the king a present. So they allowed him to go through all the security check, and he went in, and Eglon was a very fat man. So the Bible talks of a very fat man. Huh? And when Ehud removed his dagger from in between, I think it was one of the sides of the thighs, and thrust it in on the side of his belly, the fat drew in the dagger. That's what the Bible says when you read further. Okay, because fat has got that capacity to, in actual essence, where there's overnutrition, this is what happens. Some of the nutrients, especially carbohydrates, are converted into fat for future use. And then if then there's high toxicity, the body gets to produce more fat so as to store toxins or bio-waste. Okay. Then let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 32. We are reading verse 14 to 16. Butter of kine and milk of sheep, with fat of lambs and rams of the breed of Bashan, and goats with the fat of kidneys of wheat. And thou didst drink the pure blood of the grape. But Jeshurun, referring to Israel, waxed fat and kicked. Thou art waxen fat, thou art grown thick, thou art covered with fatness. Then he forsook God which made him, and lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods, with abominations provoked they him to anger. This is a beautiful verse. We can break it down and have a good study here. What we are just seeing in summary is that what one eats, of course this one here is like a parable being given, okay? But what we are getting here is that what was taken in is what we got as a result of an output. Much abundance of fat was taken in. And what happened? Israel grew fat. So Dr. John McDougall, the late, says, I can tell how much fat you have eaten by just looking at your waistline and your hips. For the fat that you eat is the fat that you wear. Okay. Interestingly, there's now a spiritual part to it. When that happened, they provoked God to jealousy with strange gods and abominations. So there's something that happens when the body is in that metabolic syndrome state. How we perceive spirituality is also affected. The last verse, Job 15, verse 27. Because he covereth his face with fatness, and maketh collops of fat on his flanks. This is talking about the unrighteous or the wicked. And actually, when you study further in this verse, it's talking about the love handles on the abdomen, especially for the ladies. Collops of fat on his flanks. Okay. So it's talking about abundance as far as life is concerned, and no intemperance. As a result, this is what comes. Testimonies, volume 2, page 374. Many eat too much. Many, not a few, eat too much. And even of that which is wholesome would not in the quantity eaten be injurious if they would balance their labor and their eating. But they eat too much, and then they sit too much. Then it says, if the same quantity as far as the muchness is eaten of that which is wholesome, and then it's balanced with the labor. But many eat without labor. This produces a diseased condition of the system, and the animal passions control the moral powers. You didn't hear that? Remember the previous part we talked about Joshua and we talked about Israel, isn't it? And we said that in overeating, in overnutrition, it affects what? It affected their spirituality. We're talking about abominations, isn't it? And here now we are finding from the writings of Ellen White, the last part says, what does overnutrition produce? It produces a diseased condition of the system. This is physiological. This is metabolic. And the animal passions control the moral powers. Think as much as you can, dig as much as you can, and ask, where is the science? The science is there. Is that making sense to you? But we could just close the statement here. It's given. That if you want to have control and victory over the lower propensities to sin and to evil, if you want to have control over animal passions that cause you to want to do that which is not right for you at the stage where you are, it boils down to how much is being eaten as well as one of the risk factors. Councils on Diet, page 52. Those who indulge in eating too much or whose food is not of a healthful quality are easily led into dissipation and into the indulgence of animal passions. Just look at those countries that promote bestiality. The worst of animal propensities and the kind of life and diet they lead as a nation. Was that a sign for 10 minutes? No. Undernutrition, scanty or lack. So we're now talking about what? Undernutrition. There's certain nutrition deficiencies. BMI that is less than 18.5. Mine is sitting on 22. Maximum is 25. Anorexia nervosa is the worst case. So at the end of the day, we have got people that are eating so much. And then we have got people that are intentionally avoiding to eat because they want to look like a Mrs. Model or something. And when they look at themselves in the mirror, they now have got a mental disorder that they think that they are actually not there. So they starve themselves. But there are also another group of people who desire to follow God's principles. Did you hear me? They want to become health reformers. And they do that with all their power and capacity, and they find themselves in a situation of undernutrition. Does that make sense to you? And in many cases, most of them, I believe, they did that without consulting Christ. Did you hear what I said? They went ahead of the Holy Spirit. They did not ask for the power and wisdom from the Holy Spirit to bring into remembrance all those things which Christ had said. How is this ought to be done? They just did it because they read someone is doing it. They also want to do it. They want to be in the group, but they did not consult the Holy Spirit. And they hit a brick wall. Some of them end up having like a vehicle that is overwritten. Is that making sense to you? And I meet a lot of these people. And some of them, they say, it's not livable. We only do that when we are working, when we've got money. They are not consulting the Holy Spirit for wisdom, for direction, for which God would say, this is the way, walk ye in it. When you walk in it, you are going to be malnourished. When you walk in it, you're going to have anemia. When you walk in it, you're going to have all these conditions. This is the way, walk ye in it. I am the Lord thy God that brought you out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Tell me, show me that God. If there is anything as far as undernutrition and challenges when it comes to health reform, it's not the health reform itself. It's not God, it's us who are trying to do God's things our way and not God's way. So I've got a table for nutritional deficiencies. Let's leave that one. But did you know that 53% of deaths in 2018 were attributable to undernutrition world over? Pneumonia took 20%, diarrhea 15%, malaria 11%, measles 5%, HIV 4%, perinatal 23%, other 22%. Some form of deficiency of some nutrient somewhere in the body. So in his sickness, Job was looking lean, not slim. He was really looking sick. Psalms 109 verse 24 to 25. My knees are weak through fasting, and my flesh faileth of fatness. I became also a reproach unto them. When they looked upon me, they shook their heads. Do you see something here? Undernutrition. And when you look at people that are suffering from anorexia nervosa or some form of undernutrition, it says they shook their heads when they looked at David, when his flesh faileth of fatness. So these things are real. They are there in the Bible. We are still living them now as a living testimony. So it depends on which side you want to testify the Bible on, isn't it? For there's nothing new underneath the what? The earth, underneath the sun. There's nothing new. There was overnutrition in the Bible. There was undernutrition in the Bible. And still the same things as we know of today, symptoms, etc., are the same. Why should we study nutrition? So that we are balanced. Are we the Church of God? Yeah, look at the person sitting next to you and say, why should we study nutrition? So that we are balanced. Counsels on Diet and Food, page 18. To keep the body in healthy condition, in order that all parts of the living machinery may act harmoniously, should be a study of our life. Not 4-year degree, not 7-year. A study of our life. So we have got 6 essential nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals. We've got water. These ones come without calories. And then we've got others which come with calories, like carbohydrates, proteins, and fat. And they've got different chemical compositions which can be traced back to the soil, magnesium, selenium, etc. And then, of course, we have got water, the forgotten nutrient, okay, without calorie. And then I want to get to this one here. The best sources of nutrients. The best sources of nutrients. The best sources of nutrients. When you get to the book of Genesis, in the beginning, God gives the best source of nutrients. All right. Chapter 1, verse 29. Of these shall be meat for you, or food for you. Of these I've given you the grains, the fruits, the nuts, and the vegetables, isn't it? And then of these you may freely eat. If it was essential for other sources of nutrients to be there outside of that environment, God could have introduced it in the beginning. But because of sin and degradation, man was given other options and alternatives to make use of, but with restriction. Then the introduction of clean and unclean foods. All right? And then we get the book of Leviticus chapter 3, verse 16 down to 17. We find God talking about what to avoid, the fat. And then when we look at this, many times there's the question of, can we get enough from that? So even when you look at trees, like an avocado tree, when there's overnutrition, the trees become brown. The roots begin to rot. Did you know that? When there's undernutrition, when it's now carrying little avocados, it aborts some of them, so that it's only left with that which it can cater for. Are you aware of that? So God has blessed several couples in my life whom I believe for some reason the womb could not sustain what was supposed to be there because of undernutrition. And you place them on the right platform and the babies start coming. Of course, the blood results reveal something. And I believe also sometimes the seed of the male, not as healthy as it should be. And so probably it's not able to do what it's supposed to do. But then, when it's given the right environment, you know what, we could have given this child your name. But I know, choose another name. Because God has what? Has blessed them with children which they could not have for a long time. And the most debated is protein. The most debated is what? It's protein. Of all of them, it's protein. We should be the simplest. So on average, 56 grams for males, 46 grams for females per day. Hey, you know, I've got this beautiful diagram that I have for you here that I wanted you to see. I think I'll just leave it to be flashed at some point during maybe one of your times, I don't know. But it shows different foodstuffs and the amount of protein in there. For example, the red lentils, black beans, almonds, peas, baked potatoes, spinach. Okay? For about 84 grams. How much is in there? If someone is going to have a meal comprising of these, how much protein are they going to get from that? And then we look at the egg, salmon, steak, and chicken. And we look at 84 grams and how much protein is in there. So then we begin to realize that according to the writings of Ellen White, it's not scarcity that is our problem, but abundance of protein intake. Is that making sense to you? So at the end of the day, you find that most metabolic challenges have got to do with abundance of protein intake of the wrong source. Okay. Then I also have got a comparison of the fish, the salmon, beef, and also beans. In this particular case, bagged black boiled beans. And we're looking at total fat, cholesterol, sodium, total carbohydrates, all the way through to see, so which one is the best? And then we can see that truly and indeed, we are better off under plant foods because the other sources come with challenges. What does the gift of God or the blessing of God does? Yes, it maketh rich, but brings no sorrow. But the blessing of men, when they are contenting for what they want, it brings sorrow. If they had sorrow before contenting, in many cases, it is because there's something they might have been doing. Or it's a case like that of Saul or Ellen White, where God says, my grace is sufficient enough for you because you can become proud. So therefore you have this thorn in your flesh continually. Yeah? So for example, we are looking at protein. When we're looking at half cup chicken, 31 grams. We're looking at salmon, half cup of salmon is about 100 grams, protein 20 grams. We're looking at steak, 21 grams. We're looking at beans, 9 grams. But remember, spinach also has. Nuts also has. Seeds has. So when we put all these together in a full plate that has been put up, one has got adequate protein for the day and without sorrow. Somebody get it? Okay, let's look at some inspiration as far as this is concerned. Those food, child guidance, page 380, paragraph 3. Those food should be chosen that best supply the elements needed for building up the body. That which builds up the body mainly is proteins. In this choice, appetite is not a safeguard. Guide. Through wrong habits of eating, the appetite has become perverted. Often it demands food that impairs health and causes weakness instead of strength. The disease and suffering that everywhere prevail are largely due to popular errors in diet. It is a mistake, Minister of Healing, page 316, paragraph 2, to suppose that muscular strength depends on the use of animal food. And there's a documentary you can watch on this one. I've got 10 studies. One of them was done by Lancet, and they actually have got a document, I think it's about a 60-page, where they are looking at athletes to say what is the best diet as far as building muscle is concerned, as far as endurance is concerned, as far as recovery is concerned, as far as low injury is concerned. And the conclusion from the 10 studies was that it's a plant-based diet. And when looking at the plant-based diet, the different categories, it can be ovo-lacto, it can be pure plant-based vegetarian, or it can be pesco-vegetarian. But in all these, you'll find that the benefits also accrue with less animal products taken. The needs of the system can be better supplied and more vigorous health can be enjoyed without its use. That is animal food. The grains with fruits, nuts, and vegetables contain all the nutritive elements necessary to make good blood. And of course, there's iron and vitamin B12, etc., isn't it? And when you start taking these foods that can promote the synthesis and production of vitamin B12, you'll find that you won't have that deficiency. These elements are not so well or so fully supplied by a flesh diet. Had the use of flesh been essential to health and strength, animal food would have been included in the diet appointed man in the beginning. If you are still someone who is studying or who sits down to argue in favor of animal food, you are almost like looking at creation in the Garden of Eden and you are labeling God a fool. If there is anything that you can do, is try to stand on the other side and push all your energies and your mental capacity and ability to say, God, this is your way. How best can we walk in it? Than to be on the other side. When actually the world is ahead, trying to make this work, you're on the other side of the camp. Throwing darts at God's people who are trying to do the best they can. May God forgive us. We need to begin to change our mindset, isn't it? But now, listen to this. There's real common sense in dietetic reform. The subject should be studied broadly and deeply, and no one should criticize others because their practice is not in all things in harmony with his own. Those of you that are different universities, when you're given an opportunity to give a lesson, please do not criticize. Look at the person sitting next to you, say, please do not criticize others. Simply because you have climbed Mount Everest and you're on top, you start criticizing others. Let them also have their God experience and time to climb Mount Everest. Let them make 2 steps and feel the pain in their muscles and saying, this is not the way. Let me rest here a little bit. I'll carry on next year. Until we are all way on the summit. Do not try to drag someone to a point which they cannot. To try and match up your standard. You are not the standard. God has given us the what? The standard, which we are all supposed to reach. And if you say, I have reached the standard, I am the standard, you are far from it. It is impossible to make an unvarying rule to regulate everyone's habits, and no one should think himself not go back and rejoin the midstream, but rather adhere to your health heritage. So recently I did a diabetic fellowship under Zeuc, which was run at Parenya through Dr. Zaranyik and others. Very interesting on this particular program. When it comes to lifestyle modifications, there's something very interesting. The diet that is being pushed for is a Mediterranean diet, which is closer. It's actually a plant-based diet. It's a vegetarian diet. Is that making sense to you? But it's not as good as the one God has given us. Others are sitting down on the drawing board. Lunchtime comes, they are not eager to go and eat. Sleeping time comes, they want to burn the midnight candle. Of course, we should not do that. To do what? To try and come up with something that works, which mirrors what God has given us. When someone is busy, spending energy and time, as Shandis, as Zitas, in order to know what are the best foods, we must study God's original plan for man's diet, which I think we have looked at a little bit. These foods, the grains, fruits, nuts, and vegetables, constitute the diet chosen for us by our Creator. These foods, prepared in as simple and natural a manner as possible, are the most healthful and nourishing. They impart a strength, power of endurance, and a vigor of intellect that are not afforded by more complex and stimulating diet. And listen for students. Students would accomplish much more in their studies if they never tasted meat. Students would accomplish much more in their studies if they never tasted meat. When the animal part of the human agent is strengthened by meat eating, the intellectual powers diminish proportionately. So think yourself a genius at the level where you are. Had you not tasted meat, you could have been not where you are. You could have been a triple genius. You could have been a quadruple genius. Is that making sense to you? May the Lord help us. let's look at diet status and hypertension. Remember, we said we are looking at metabolic disorders, and one of them is hypertension. Okay, and here we are looking at the relationship of diet and the risk of hypertension, high blood pressure among Seventh-day Adventists. So there were studies being done. Recently, there's one that is actually being done in Africa for the first time. I think this is study number 2, the Adventist Health Studies. And for total vegetarians, their risk is at 5% to get high blood pressure. For lacto-ovo vegetarian, it's at 9%. For pesco vegetarian, those who eat fish, it's at 13%. Semi-vegetarian, 16%. This is someone who says meatless Monday, fishless Wednesday, eggless Friday, 16%. Non-vegetarians, their risk as far as diet is concerned is on 19%. 19% versus 5%. So I've got these two couple. They are non-SDA. By the way, at my workplace, most of the clients who come for consultation, 99% are non-Seventh-day Adventists. Okay? And when they come for consultation, I enjoy it the most. Okay? We interact. But when my fellow friends come for consultation, we've got a lot of fighting to do. Okay? So I sit and listen, and they do the eulogy and everything, and they do everything. And when they're done, I ask them a question. But you've come here. I believe you know the principles that we uphold here. What do you think? So we do motivational interviewing. They need to come to the conclusion themselves. Then we pick it up from there, what they're supposed to do. Then we help them. We don't give solutions. And then looking at type 2 diabetes, actually I was talking about these two, they're non-SDA. The husband was a big man. He was a big man. I think his weight was around, I can't remember the exact kgs, but it was a 3-figure. He's in the real estate. So he says, when I'm going for a business deal, my weight intimidates. When I walk into the room, when I put my weight around, when I'm expressing a point and my hand does this, it intimidates. And it helps me to get what? The deal. But I'm on medication for hypertension. But this, but that, but this. Then I'm like, you know what, my friends? We're just going to help you to become less bully in the meetings. All right? 2 months later, he came to my office and said, Doc, I need to buy a new wardrobe. My suits, they cannot fit. Sometime before, he'd send me a picture when he's holding his suit like this, saying, Doc, look, I used to fit in here. Now I'm not fitting anymore. You know? And now I think it's almost 7 months plus. The gentleman is enjoying good health. At one point, the wife, I think the hypertension was quite high. That one was hypertension emergency. I think it was around 190 over 100 and something. But Doc, I'm not feeling anything. And you know what? The wisdom of God does? It just brings it down. And then it leaves it where it's normal and maintains there. You know, these things are amazing. And you know, I wonder at my people and say, God, where are we? So from among you, there should be a crop of medical students, nutritionists, nurses, even teachers, even dentists who say, for me, as I'm starting to become what I want to become, I want to become the epitome of New Start, implementation as far as patient care and management is concerned. Are you there? We have got the American College of Lifestyle Medicine that was started by Seventh-day Adventists. We have now, most of it, they've put off their hands. Not because they don't want to, but because the world has jumped on it and they're moving faster than they could. They think they could move. So they're sitting back as advisors. Is that making sense to you? And now we have got a group of medical professionals world over embracing New Start under the guise of lifestyle medicine. I wish you could do the same. So we're looking at type 2 diabetes. The same principle. Total vegetarians, 1.6 risk factor for getting diabetes. Lacto-ovo-vegetarians, 2.2%. Pesco-vegetarians, 3%. 4.3% for semi-vegetarians. 6.3% for non-vegetarians. And then this one is a very interesting one. So it's a scale. And on the scale, it shows one lady on the other side and the other lady on the other side. And they're both putting on skates, okay, dresses, because this was done by Loma University. And total vegetarians can put around 64 kgs if they're going to be eating their food, which is around 100 grams as far as protein is concerned. But when you look on the other side of the scale, with the same protein, which is not from plant sources, they're going to put 82 kgs. So as far as weight management is concerned, they are better on the other side. Recently, there was also this lady that came to my office. She's a lawyer, very influential, been struggling with losing weight. And I think it's less than a month. And the body is saying, yes, yes, this is what I was created to feel like. Huh? So then, at her workplace, she invited the secretary. She invited the other influential people to say, come, I found a place where your weight within a month can get to levels that are unexpected. And this white lady came through, and we are sitting there and said, Doc, don't even try it. I said, what? Don't even try it. Don't ask me what I think. Don't ask me what to do, because I've been thinking and doing, it has not been working. Tell me what to do. Then I said, well, I want to find out what you've been doing and what you think, so that we are able only to give you to do what you think you can manage. Okay? Because there's no one size fits all. The health reform I was shown is a part of the third angel's message, and is just closely connected with it as the arm and hand with the human body. I saw that we as a people must make an advanced move in this great work. Ministers, including elders, including those leading in churches and institutions, associations of Seventh-day Adventist, associations and different institutions of learning, and people must act in concert. God's people are not prepared for the loud cry of the third angel. They have a work to do for themselves, which they should not leave for God to do for them. Let me tell you something. We can meet in many halls, we can have many meetings and discuss many things. We can talk about prophecy and all these things. As long as we are doing so and we cut off the right hand, we are not prepared for the loud cry of the third angel. We are going to remain on earth longer. Is that making sense to you? And God cannot do that work for us. But there is hope. There is hope. I just want to share this. This is something we implement. We actually implement this. Yeah? We implement this at the Lifestyle Center in Masasa Lane, in Glenlawn. We implement this. And we see the results even now, when it was first implemented in 1859. Yeah? 1859. In great weakness, this is May 7, 1859. In great weakness, attended the meeting, could not remain. This is Ellen White. Obliged to leave and lie down until dinner time. They got me wine and raw egg, which revived my strength. Yeah? Medical Nutrition Therapy 101. Huh? And took a wet sheet pack and put it around me. That's hydrotherapy. Huh? And what happened? She was revived. 1904, she writes, when a letter came to me from Korembong saying that Dr. Chris was dying, I was that night instructed that he must have a change of diet. He was following health reform in deformity. Huh? He was following health reform in what? In deformity. And now he was sick. And Ellen White is sleeping at night in her bed. And what happened? The angel of the Lord came and gave her an instruction.
Kwa kuda kuyeta,